Hi, I'm Darren Amos, and today I'm going to talk about pension beneficiaries. So the people you leave your pension to if something happens to you before you retire or after you retire if you stay in drawdown. So the pension beneficiary nominations that you make. And I'm asking the question, are your beneficiaries in the room? What do I mean by that? Well, there are several rooms to consider. I think this is quite a simple analogy to keep things easy to follow. Three rooms. First of all, on most pension fund nomination forms, you have normally one, sometimes two choices, and just check what your choices are. First of all, if it says your direction, at your direction, this says, I want to give my benefits to my spouse, and you name the person, or it could be your daughter, or whatever it might be that you've nominated. If something happens to you, only the named person or persons on that nomination form will get the funds, just like your will is exactly specific. The trustees have no options, so if you were to die in a crash with your partner, for example, it would still go to them and it would go to their estate, which obviously could mean the delays from probate, there could be other issues, and there's likely to be taxation issues for anybody receiving the funds after that. Trustees have no options. More and more you see forms saying trustees' discretion. Now that means the trustees, you'll still name people on there. It's not like you're not naming the people you want it to be. You're naming the people, and the named persons get priority, but the trustees also use their discretion if they believe it's what you wanted. So for example, if you've named your daughter and you've got two daughters and one of them's not been mentioned because the other one's only just been born recently before you have an accident, then they would use their discretion and say he probably wanted both daughters to have something, so they would split it. Now the main difference there is the named person deceased and the trustees will look to pay to any other potential beneficiaries rather than pay it to the estate. So if you say my spouse and my daughter and your spouse dies, they would look to give it all to your daughter rather than give it to your spouse's estate. That means that it's likely to go to them tax-free. Only unnamed beneficiaries, so if they pick another child or another grandson or whatever that you haven't named, that person potentially has a tax implication, but anybody on the list doesn't. Now the final option is trustee discretion with additional nominees. This is really crucial. If you write your nomination form this way, you'll need to speak to your provider or your advisor, depending on who your pension's with, but they're all a theme within a theme. But each form's slightly different, so I'm not going to specifically say which form's which. You name everybody that you can think of that you would like to benefit. Now that could be your spouse, your 3 children, your 12 grandchildren, etc. Now you obviously don't want it if you die tomorrow. You want your spouse to get the lion's share because she's going to leave it to live on. That's the purpose of having spousal benefits. So you would write this scenario perhaps giving 99% to your spouse or 95% or whatever it might be. So they get the lion's share. And the other nominees, let's assume it's 2 children, then you would say 0.5% each. They're on the list, so we know who you want to go to. So when you die, they pay to the named persons. Now, of course, your wife will get 99%, and the 2 nominees, theoretically, would get 0.5% as well, your children. But because the trustees have discretion, they might decide, with agreement from the 3 nominee beneficiaries, that they can go 100% to the spouse, and the other 2 give up their rights. And that's possible still. But if the spouse dies in that horrible car crash with you, then they will know that the 2 daughters in equal shares were expected to get what was left. So now they're going to get 50% of the fund rather than 0.5% of the fund, because that was in line with your wishes. If, however, there's a 3rd child that, again, you haven't changed the nomination yet and you've got a new child recently, they would then vary that and make it 33, 33, 33 something. So you can do that. Problem with that would be the difference is that the person not in the room, i.e. the person not named on the beneficiary form, would be taxed potentially. The 2 people that are already on the nomination wouldn't be. So put as many as you can on the nomination form. So remember, the main key here is about the rooms. If they're in the room, the benefits are usually paid tax-free, whether it's by direction or discretion. If they're listed, they will normally get their benefits tax-free. If they're not listed, they probably may well be due to tax. Depends on the situation, but obviously I'm being quite general here. So if they're not in the room, likely to be taxed. If they're in the room, not taxed. So make sure they're in the room. And that's it for today's quick run round benefits. Obviously, far more complicated than that. So you need to speak to your financial advisor, or feel free to give me a call and we can talk it through. But it really depends on the scheme itself. So it's quite specific how you fill the form in. Each provider has a different way of doing that. So I won't go down that. So thanks very much for listening. I'll see you again next week.